Welcome to Between the Before and After, a podcast about the stories that shape us. I'm your host, Coach John McLernan, and each episode I bring you an inspiring guest with a moving story that shines a light on the power of the human spirit. Before we dive in, I want to let you know about two very important things. Number one, the stories shared here are often gritty, raw, and vulnerable, and very likely will include speaking about sensitive topics suited for a mature audience. Number two, this podcast is also broadcast live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So on whatever platform you follow myself or Freedom Nutrition Coaching, you have the opportunity to participate in this discussion during the live stream. And we encourage your participation both by commenting and asking questions. And so this podcast is about exploring the stories that take place between the before and after photos, not just in the realm of weight loss, but in all areas of life. So let's dive in. All right, welcome back. I'm here with Tina, coming to us all the way from, are you in Alabama?
No, I'm in near Annapolis, Maryland, if you're thinking of the A, but I'm in Bowie, Maryland.
Okay, I was thinking because you got published, or you were on a show in Montgomery, so I was thinking, is that a place in Alabama that you're getting published?
No, that's Montgomery County in Maryland. Yeah, in Maryland, yeah.
Okay, so my geographic ignorance as a Canadian is already showing, which is great.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you on. You run Tina's Joyful Kitchen, and actually I'd love to give people just kind of a snapshot of where you're at right now, and then we're going to start exploring your story. So
absolutely. My name's Tina McDermott, obviously, and I'm the lazy inspirational chef. I'm a speaker. I'm a weight loss coach. I have been teaching health and wellness and weight loss for almost 22 years. Yes, it gives me chills top to bottom every time I say 22 plus years, or almost 22 years at this point. Yeah. And, I can tell you that it's my love and it is my joy to teach people how they can find joy in the kitchen, even if they don't know how to cook or like to cook, so that they can lose weight naturally without yo-yo dieting. And they can live a life that's full of health, full of joy, full of vibrancy, and free from capital D, capital I, capital E, small t's, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to diet. We want to live it in full and free from dis-ease. We want to be free from dis-ease. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I want people in this whole world to live healthy, vibrant, and free.
That's amazing. So now you have quite a story in terms of getting here. So now, because you've been doing this for 22 years, I can maybe go out on a limb and say you're probably past the age of 30, because I'm going to suspect you started a little bit past the age of 10.
No.
But
No.
we say that age is just a number, but I've just ticked over 40, right? So I'm also learning to cope with the reality is that the clock keeps on ticking, and I do want to keep my health. But almost everybody who I meet who does something like this has a story behind why they're doing this, and I think you're no exception here. There's probably a story where you discovered that something was wrong, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here, but I need some help, and maybe struggle to find help. So I wonder if we could just rewind the clock a little bit and start kind of when you started noticing that something wasn't right.
Wow, you're going to rewind the clock to a very vulnerable time of my life, but I'm going to do it for you, John. I'm going to do
thank
it.
You.
And before I go there, I want to say a sincere thank you for doing what you do, because it's amazing. I got chills even through your intro and some of your podcasts. So thank you. All right, so let's go back to when I was a young child. I was anorexic. I wouldn't eat. And I was always very gassy and very bloated, even when I did start eating. I went to Italy with my grandma when I was by myself without my parents, and I gained 20 pounds that year, but I could always say it hurts on the inside. It hurts. And I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on with me. All I knew is that I hurt. And my sisters gave me a nickname. The nickname in Italian, because we're Italian, even though my name's McDermott, Ragnacci is my maiden name. And it's kind of embarrassing. I'm turning red thinking about it, but it's Puzza. And Puzza was that was my nickname, and it means stinky in Italian.
Oh, man. Sisters.
It's terrible, because I had so much gas and so much bloating, and it would let go at the worst times. And I always felt different from everybody else because I had gas, I had bloating, I had to leave the classroom. It was not fun. Okay. It was not a fun growing up. And I didn't know why, but what happened when I was around 19, my sister at 23 was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I took a deep dive into reading about health and wellness and nutrition. I even became a vegetarian for 10 years, only 10. And I still didn't resolve the gas and bloating, but it really ignited my passion to not suffer like my sister was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, she lived for 24 more years, the last 4 years in stage 4. And there's pictures of her behind my computer here. So I always look to her for inspiration. I wear her on my sleeve.
That's
I wear her on
beautiful,
my
yeah.
sleeve. And she is my inspiration for wanting to affect as many people in this world as possible through health and through wellness and all of the above. And
Yeah.
pardon me for just a moment.
Well,
I have something on do not disturb, but it's still disturbing me. So my sister is has been my inspiration for wanting to affect as many people in this world as humanly possible through health and through wellness. So backtracking,
yeah, you
Anna was
mentioned
my
something
inspiration.
yeah,
What's that?
you mentioned something interesting I wanted to maybe shine a bit of a light on here. And that was, you said you battled with anorexia. What age were you when that came into your experience? And maybe what prompted you to feel as though eating was something that should be avoided?
I was young. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know. I know in retrospect, looking at that, I refused to eat.
Mm-hmm.
If I ate anything, it would be sugar laden. I know that
Right.
my parents had a very difficult time feeding me.
Convincing you to, you
I,
know.
I was, I'm pretty sure if I had to tell you what it was, I was hyperactive.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of anxiety. And of course, I wouldn't eat. And if I did, it was sugars. And I would bang my head up against the wall, literally. Still have a bald spot. No, teasing. But
Yeah.
maybe that's right.
There
I
might be
don't know.
one there.
And I was the third child of 4
Yeah.
in and a family that was literally off the boat from Italy. And my father's father passed away before I was born, a year before I was born, actually. So my father had the burden of raising not only his own children, but all of his sisters and brothers were all dependent on him. He was the eldest. So I felt probably the pressure of everything that was going on. And I looking back, I think that was my way of controlling, having some kind of control in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
life. That's what I think. Now, when did I recognize it? No. When I got back from Italy and I was 20 pounds heavier, I came out of that phase. I was 12 years old. You go through
Mm-hmm.
puberty and I gained, of course, then my sister started making fun of me. So let's not talk about the emotional stuff unless you want to, okay?
Oh,
Because we
I'm
can.
happy to talk about that because we do. But I spent 7 months living in Italy. It was a really, really enjoyable time. My wife and I spent a number of years traveling around the world, and
Nice.
in Italy, of course, food and the culture is very hospitable. But hospitality really circulates around food, and I have this picture one time. I was staying with a host family, and it was. What was the little boy's name? It was Giovanni, and it was like, Giovanni, mangia tu pasta, I just remember it because it sounded like so Italian, like eat your pasta, because he this little boy, he was about 9 years old at the time, and he just didn't want to eat, and he was, and it was, but I just remember the culture, and because of course I really love food. And Italians, are amazing. They create amazing dishes and things, and I would eat with such gusto and joy. They wanted to keep feeding me, so my time living in Italy, I also happened to gain some weight because they're like, "Oh, you like eating? Well, let's keep feeding you." Yeah,
I love it. Mangia che ti fa bene. That's what my grandma would say all the time.
yeah,
Mangia che ti fa bene, which is eat because it's good for you.
right, yeah, yeah.
Eat because it's good for you. So
The other Italian phrase I learned was basta, and
basta means stop. That's
yeah,
enough.
basta.
Yeah. Pasta and basta. Pasta is enough. Stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basta di pasta. So we had some. I did learn to speak Italian, but I'm not going to pretend that I can crack it out now because it's been about 11 years since I lived over there, so it's probably pretty rusty. But
it's all good, John.
It was a good time. So we go back. Your sister started making fun of you because you had gained some weight, and this was at a really vulnerable stage in terms of your emotional development because you're starting to go through puberty. You're coming into the teen years. I mean, as if that isn't difficult enough, and siblings, they're honestly maybe out to be malicious, but it's like, hey, here's an obvious change that we see that we want to point out.
Yeah. Is it an obvious change? Well, yeah, because they're sisters. They're my older sisters. They were always. I was 5 years younger than my eldest, and 3 from the middle one, Rose, who I'm very, very, very close to now.
Mm-hmm.
And they would make fun of me, like, you're fat, you got to lose weight, but was it really making fun of me, or was it making fun of, was it something emotional coming from them that they were overweight and they wanted to lose the weight, so they were projecting it on me? Anyhow, at 12 years old, you take it personal, and I have been on this yo-yo roller coaster, lose weight, gain weight, exercise fanatic since I was a young kid, and of course hyperactive. So that kind of started that roller coaster of emotional issues when it came to food. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And so, and I think this is a story that we see play out time and time again. In fact, I go back to reference Italy. I saw kind of an interesting phenomenon when I was living over there, where it was like maybe the grandmother would be overweight, so then the daughter would be slender, and then the granddaughter would be overweight again. So the grandmother would be, say, overweight, so then the daughter would like, say, starve herself because she didn't want to be overweight, but then would like feed her child and so on. It seemed to be this back and forth cycle, the generational cycle that I would observe. But I think this is the common struggle where we, at a certain age, we somehow become aware that, hey, carrying extra weight makes me less desirable in the eyes of society, so I need to try to change that.
First of all, I want to say I've healed from all of that. I have found many modalities to heal from those emotional chains that have kept me stuck and kept me yo-yo dieting for many of my years of my life. Before, of course, I started learning and teaching and helping people overcome those emotional issues so that they can move forward with their life. I've learned so many different things. And I can help somebody sometimes in minutes, sometimes it takes several sessions, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to get them through whatever those emotional things are. And the emotional things are not necessarily just the addiction to food, but it's issues from literally when they were 5 years old, from 5 to 7 years old. There's something there that happened that made them feel that they weren't worthy. Not that we have to go back there, John, but we can heal that inner child so simply. I do it with something called the peace process. That's so simple. And we just need to feel. Most of our fears are fears of feelings. We're afraid to feel whatever it is. So we shove it under the carpet. We shove it into our organs. We shove it into our cells, our fat cells. We shove it down, and we don't want to look at it. And I very gently, very kindly, very beautifully use universal energy and help you feel it in a very safe way and allow it to be. If it wants to stay, it stays. If it wants to go, it goes. And most often it goes so that people can come to neutral with whatever those emotions are. It's so beautiful. I didn't even know to go down this road with you today, but I just needed to express this and the power that each and every one of us have, but not all of us tap into, of energy, of heal. I say people heal themselves. I facilitate that healing. I facilitate it.
Well, you said something really interesting there, just in terms of our biggest fears are often connected to a feeling that we don't want to feel. And I mean, I'm a recovered binge eating food addict. I went through trauma, and it was my coping mechanism because I didn't know how to deal with all of the big and overwhelming emotions I had in my life and so on. And so, you're speaking to my experience in a sense, and this is something you would have experienced as well, and especially in your case when it's rooted to like the developmental years. When we take an experience and we attach a strong emotion to it, it often gets recorded in that part of our brain that is timeless. And so situations down the road can immediately bring us back to that feeling we had in that moment, and it can make it so difficult. And then we think about just culturally how oh, you're feeling sad, have a cookie, or if you're good, you get a chocolate, or things like that. And so we just condition ourselves, and then marketing plays on this. Hey, you've had a tough day, you deserve this indulgent food here, which is basically highly addictive and unhealthy. So in so many different ways, we're being conditioned to use food to manage our emotions.
Yep, that's very true. You fall down, you scrape your knee as a little kid. Here's a lollipop, or here's an icy. Here's a treat. And there's so many different things that you can do to treat yourself these days. When you do fall down and you bruise your knee, go buy yourself some flowers, go for a walk, hug a tree, take a bath, hug a friend, hug a cat. I think there might be a cat in the basket back here. So you just, you pet a cat, you pet a dog, you do something else other than eating, but we've been trained to go to eating. And then you get whatever that eating is, the sugar, the addiction of that addicts you to more sugar, to more salt, to more fat. And yes, you're right, marketers play on that, and the addiction continues. But you can break those chains. You can break them, and it's not that you have to just take the first step and say, yes, I'm ready. And then the person who is going to help you, the master that's going to help you, will present themselves. All you need to do is say, I'm ready. What's my next step? And the person who's going to help you, or the program that's going to help you, will present themselves, because you will opened up that pathway because you are mentally ready. So all you need to do is say, yes, I'm ready.
That's such an interesting, it's the quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
That's it.
So yes. It's like when we start looking for help, and we're open to the idea that we need help. And this is a really, really big thing that so many people struggle with. I call it living in the gap, and it's living in the gap between knowing and doing. Right. So how many people do we meet where it's like, well, I know what to do, but I can't seem to do it? It's like, yes, that is almost like the universal human experience, because if knowledge was going to solve the problem, Google would have done it for us. But this is not an information puzzle. It's not a lack of information that prevents us from taking the steps we need to heal and to get healthy.
Yeah, it's not. I think that's where a coach comes in. That's where the coach comes in, because the coach knows how to facilitate and how to bring you to the next level. How to take you there. It's like, I love that, living in the gap, and this is the way I explain coaching. I've explained it for many, many years this way, and do not quote me on these numbers. It's like an airplane going at 100 miles an hour stays on the ground, but at 102 it gets lift. That 2% gets lift, and now it's flying and it's soaring. And that's that coach. It's that 2% that gets you to soaring, to get you off the ground.
That's a really great analogy, and it's I love analogies, because when we can create a picture around a concept, it makes it easy for people to understand, and it brings it down to, because we think in pictures in our brain, we create images. And what's really, really fascinating is we move towards the pictures that we create in our mind. And so many people are fixated on, here's what I don't want. And I treat it, I say, no, I understand that, because it's easy. Very often it's easier for us to identify what we don't want than what we do want. But that's kind of akin to driving down the highway and staring in the rear view mirror. This is what I'm trying to get away from. Yeah. Well, that's how you end up crashing, But we can take, here's what I don't want, and flip it to, okay, if that's what I don't want, what is that pointing me towards?
Correct.
What is that telling me that I do want in my life?
Correct. Because if you don't know what you don't want, you won't know what you do want. So there's an importance there, and we don't stay there. We stop looking behind. Life doesn't happen in the rearview mirror. Life happens in front of you. You pay. Yeah. How big is the rearview mirror, right? And how big is your front window in your car?
The rearview mirror has value. It's not to say that don't ever look in the rearview mirror. It does have value, and there's lessons that we can draw from history and whatnot. But if that's our focal point, then we're headed for a crash. So if we go back to your story here, because that was a really nice sort of sidetrack. I mean, you've got some beautiful wisdom to share. So we think about, you come into maybe like your 20s and whatnot, and these digestive issues continue to happen, the gas, the bloating, and whatnot. Did that affect your ability to socialize and kind of form relationships, or how did you navigate that?
Oh, why do you have to ask the difficult questions, John? I was always very different from everybody else. You know, I spent all my summers in Italy, most of them, and I'd come back. Everybody had their bonds. I didn't have any bonds with anyone. You know, I was in the minority of people in my school or my friends or at work. However, I have an exuberant personality and I do make friends easy nowadays, of course. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, I didn't as much. Very family oriented. Most of our friends were family, cousins. Not that we had a ton of them here in the United States. Most of them are in Italy. And of course, I'd spend the summers with them. And so I would tell, and I had one best friend that I would be with most of the time. But for the most part, I didn't have a huge friendship, a whole bunch
Mm-hmm.
of people. I had friends that were my family, my cousins and such, and my sisters, and we got together all the time. So there were not a lot of extra outside friends. Maybe some friends from work, but nothing crazy because I spent a lot of time hanging out with my sister Anna too. Like she was my
Mm-hmm.
movie buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, very very tight family, and you might find that in a lot of Italian families that were like
Yeah.
that. But how did that affect me socially? Awkward. I was very awkward. And
Yeah.
also, there's another piece to this, but that I want to make sure that you know, and that is a huge part of my story. But it's not my story. I don't live it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
Mm.
make sense? I don't live it
Absolutely.
anymore. I'm through it. I don't say that. So, in my 30s, my mid 30s, I found out I had Lyme disease,
Yeah.
and I studied Lyme. Um, it took me 5 years to get rid of it. I'm done. It's out of my body. What I
Mm-hmm.
deal with now at 54 is or are the effects that Lyme had on my body, on my brain, my organs, my thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that knowing what I know and having studied what I studied, and I am not a Lyme expert. That's
Mm-hmm.
not my forte. My forte is weight loss, okay?
Mm-hmm.
My forte is weight loss because that's what most people want weight loss, and I get them to health and wellness, and weight loss becomes a side effect, okay?
I love that. I say that too. Side effects may include weight loss.
Yeah, yeah, the side effects are the weight loss of being healthy and well. So in my 30s, I'm pretty sure that I got reinfected with Lyme. And I'm positive that I had Lyme either as a child or as a teenager. I'm not sure. I cannot trace it back. I just
Mm-hmm.
know I'm the girl that played outside in the mud
Mm-hmm.
all the time, under the trees, climbing trees, under the bushes, always had ticks on me. So I am positive that I had it and that my immune system, when you're younger, fights it off, but it affected my digestive system mostly and my
Right.
brain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My sisters would always say to me, "Oh, that's Tina's world. We're in Tina's world right now," because one of the effects of my brain is I would be dizzy. I would not, I wasn't, let's put it this way. They never thought I was the smartest tool in the shed. Although today I can tell you I'm pretty smart, and it was the Lyme
Yeah.
that was affecting my brain. So I'm positive that I got reinfected in my 30s, and that's when I went through the journey of cleansing that, eradicating it. That's a better
Mm-hmm.
word.
Mm-hmm.
Eradicating Lyme from my body. It took me 5 years to figure it out. I went down the medical route, I went through the naturopathic route, and then I figured out the right way or my way of finally getting it out of my body. And again,
Yeah.
now it's a matter of um, helping the thyroid and dealing with
Mm.
all of the other issues that come with menopause because I'm 54.
Now, it
And
might be helpful just to share with people just a little snippet because we hear Lyme disease and there are those who are affected by it, but maybe we don't always have an understanding of how it can manifest. And I think many people know it can come from like a tick bite, for example, but you know, really, what is Lyme an autoimmune condition? How does it manifest, and how might someone start, figuring out if this is something? Because it seems like it's a very nebulous condition that the medical I don't want to say the industry because it's not the right word, but the
community.
establishment or community really struggles with because it is so difficult to pin down. So maybe you could share just a little bit about what it is and how it manifested in yourself, and maybe how you might have seen it show up in others as well.
You got a couple hours?
Well, we're going to try and do it in a couple of minutes, but
I know. I'm going to try. I'm going to try, and I'm going to try. Okay. First of all, let's talk about the medical community. Insurance doesn't cover a lot of stuff. So if doctors do too much with Lyme, they can get shut down. One of my doctors did get shut down. Okay, let's see. What were my symptoms? What was going on? What to look for you? Lyme is one of the diseases that a tick can give you. There are a multitude of other diseases that a tick bite can give you. They are called co-infections. I'm not going to give you the whole list. There's a whole list. People think, oh, I didn't get a bullseye, I'm fine. I say you get bit by a tick, you need to treat for Lyme ASAP. You go to a doctor, you get some doxycycline, whatever tiny bacteria it gave you, it'll eradicate it right away. If you don't, that tiny bacteria proliferates and can take over the cells of your body. Now, with that said, I always had gas, bloating, lethargy, and dizziness, spaciness. These are, I'm telling you, all of my symptoms throughout the years that I experienced on and off. And finally, in the end of my 35, I'm an athlete. I'm a cyclist. I would ride my bike 200 and 350 miles a week. I'm not joking. I was just on the bike all the time. And then I got married and I was on the bike a little bit less, but it was still racing. We were still having a great time. And I couldn't do it. I also had got asthma from all of that's probably from living in Maryland, not the Lyme, but still, Lyme affects so many different things.
Yeah.
And I couldn't ride anymore. I mean, I could ride, but I wasn't strong like I used to be. Then I started being tired all the time, just lethargic. I was trying B12 shots, lethargic. Went to the doctor. He says, "Oh, your thyroid is not working." And so let's go on thyroid medicine. We did that for 3 months. And I said, I am even more tired. And he says, okay, well, let's check for Lyme. I have a smart doctor. So he checked for Lyme and I came up positive for Lyme. I can tell you I'm one of the lucky ones because there are people who come up with a false negative, which means that the test comes up as negative, but they actually have it. And it's because the Lyme is probably not active at the time, or because our tests are not as great as they are for dogs. Dogs have a vaccine, but not for people. Mm-hmm. It's a whole nother political thing. I'm not going to go there with you. Yep. Feet burning, fevers. I did get reinfected with Lyme about 5 years ago. I went to Florida and I came back, and 6 weeks later, because it takes about 6 weeks for these, I didn't see any bites on me. Because some of those ticks are teeny, tiny. And I was getting fever after fever after fever. I would take ibuprofen, it would go away. I would get another fever. The doctor did a whole bunch of tests on me, and Lyme came up again. So I got Lyme again. And so I was able to get rid of it rather quickly.
And could I ask then, if someone has had Lyme, does that mean that there's a susceptibility there that maybe wouldn't be there previously?
No, you get bit by a tick that has Lyme, you're going to get it again. It's that simple. But if you have not eradicated it from your body and your immune system is low, because okay, so what's Lyme itself, the bacteria themselves are spirochetes. They're spiral. And what they do, so you've got Lyme, it's all in your cells. You take antibiotics and it kills a lot of them, but some of them are very smart. And they bore into the cells and they bore into your organs, of course, destroying organs. And they have this film that they grow around them. I forget what it's called. It'll come to me in a minute. And then they hide because the antibiotic was like killing everybody. So they're going to go hide. So then they're going to come out and play a little bit because your immune system is low. So they're going to come out and play, and then they're going to proliferate, right? So then you're going to take another antibiotic, and then they're going to go hide again. So some of them will die, some of them will hide. So that's one of the major challenges with Lyme, because they are spiral in shape, spirochete in shape, that they bore and they hide. So that's if you get bit again,
terrifying in a sense.
Yeah, it's terrifying. They're going to come out and play. I just need to shut my door here. They're going to come out and play if your immune system is down. So say you're going to go, say you're fit, you're healthy, and you go and do a 200-mile bike ride or a marathon, and you're sweating and you're just really just giving everything you have. And then you can't get off the couch for 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, this isn't normal. It's because you sweat and it's coming out of your cells. It's bringing it forward, and your immune system goes low when you are overactive. When I say overactive, you're exercising more than, say, 2 hours at a time, maybe 3 hours at a time. You're doing extreme sports and really taxing your body. So now the your immune system is low. Normal
Yeah.
people will be able to recover like that, or in a couple of days. But people who have Lyme and the Lyme comes up, it's going to take over. So, are you
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
through?
Absolutely. So then, it sounds like again that there's a process of treatment, and some of it does involve some medical treatment as well as maybe some natural and holistic methodologies potentially as well, depending on the individual. Um, and maybe you have a different approach now than you might have 10 or 15 years ago based on kind of your experience with it.
My approach, if I found out that I had Lyme again, I would do exactly as I did 5 years ago.
Hmm.
I would take the antibiotics,
Okay.
and I have my entire supplement routine that I take, as well as something called redox signaling molecules that will help boost my immune system, and I can get rid of it out of my body, hopefully within weeks. It all depends if it's Rocky Mountain spotted fever or Ehrlichia. There's so many different co-infections, so you have to find out what those co-infections. You don't have to, but if you follow, I have my own protocol that I follow. Again,
Right. Yes.
supplements,
Yeah.
eating right, sleeping, meditating. There's no more marathon running. There's no more. It's calm,
Just
walking, stretching,
nourishing. Yeah.
drinking your water, eating the right foods, getting lots and lots and lots of high fiber, green leafy vegetables,
Mm.
lean proteins. Just really being good and clean with eating, and that will help to get rid of all of it.
Yeah, and this is probably a good time just to throw a quick disclaimer in there for any of the social media censors and whatnot. We're having a
Oh,
conversation about this. We're not preventing or presenting any sort of medical
correct.
information. This is for entertainment purposes and
Yes.
educational purposes. But it's a
Yes.
really fascinating discussion because I think there's something to be learned from anecdotal human experience, which is why I'm curious about this. And so, but it sounds like part of what you're saying is there is a bit of an individual journey that of discovery that each person goes on, and it's going to be a process if they're going to recover from something like this.
Yeah. It is a process, or a process, as you say in Canada.
Well, we probably use both. I mean,
I'm
in
teasing.
fact, I probably use both depending on the sentence. So as a former sort of supplement scientist, and I was involved in the supplement industry, and I have a few in my collection. We'll say. I would be curious because you mentioned like some redox signaling molecules and whatnot. If we could just be a little bit nerdy for just a moment on supplements, what are some that you find helpful for you?
Okay, I'm not going to name specific brands or anything like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say that what helped, because of my brain issues are directly correlated with the gut. So I
Mm-hmm.
take things that are like probiotics, a really good probiotic with multi strands, digestive enzymes, as well as proteolytic enzymes. Proteolytic
Mm-hmm.
enzymes, when you take them away from food, heal cells. The digestive enzymes, when you take them with food, help you digest your food. I take krill oil to help with the DHA, the APA for your brain. I also take some blue-green algae, a lot of blue-green algae that has ALA fatty acid in it, a lot of ALA fatty acid that's wonderful for your brain.
Mm.
And of course, redox signaling molecules, which are native to the body. And that's a whole nother discussion because redox signaling
Yeah.
molecules boost your immune system. So those are some of the basics of I wouldn't live without probiotics, digestive enzymes, and the DHA and
Mm-hmm.
EPA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
They're phenomenal.
and the redox signaling molecules. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. I was just jotting a couple notes down. I'm looking at my supplement stack, and most of these things are included in there as well. So,
Good.
oh, cool.
Good.
I'm already priming myself in case that ever happens. So,
Well, I think we need these things on a normal basis as well, not just
yes, yeah.
when you have any kind of dis-ease. You just
Mm-hmm.
need these things on a normal basis because remember, yeah, the Lyme affected my brain. So if I stopped taking them, or say I went to a restaurant and there might have been MSG and their seasoning and I didn't know it, my brain gets affected and
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time making sentences or finding the words.
Yeah,
It's really strange, but it
yeah,
happens, and I know when it happens because I don't feel right,
yeah.
mentally and physically.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So MSG, for people have heard of monosodium glutamate, and it's in the chemistry sense. It's just the sodium salt of glutamic acid, and glutamic acid is an amino acid that's abundant in our body. It's a building block of over 60% of our muscle is made up of glutamine, but it happens to be also neuroexcitatory. So for certain people, because we have receptors in our brain called glutamate receptors, certain people are very sensitive to it, and so it can create excitement in the brain, which is not necessarily a good thing. It can lead to brain fog, headaches. I was going to say headiness, which is maybe a combination of headaches and dizziness. Yeah, and so it can be quite an unpleasant experience for people, and other people can consume it and be seemingly entirely unaffected by it. Go figure. Because
it does have cumulative effects, though. It does have cumulative effects. It does. So, like, you look at people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, look and see their history of eating throughout their whole life. And there is some science about people who have Alzheimer's connected to Lyme. Just saying, there's some study. I'm not saying it is.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I also take bilberry extract, which is like a European blueberry, as well as lion's mane mushroom, along with the DHA and EPA fatty acids, because I'm really and I have a few select nuts that I also enjoy, because I'm really particular about my brain health as much as I can, because I'll say that's the thing that probably terrifies me the most, is the idea of losing my brain function. So I want to give myself the best shot at it. So
it is terrified. What are your favorite nuts? I want to know now.
Well, I usually have 2 to 3 Brazil nuts a day, which sounds like 2 to 3, but like Brazil nuts are huge. Like they're enormous, and but I can get all I need from 2 or 3 of them, so I can make a bag last for a very, very long time. I've got some cashews, which I think technically are drupes, not actually nuts. Go figure.
Correct.
Botanically, they're drupes. Go figure. There's another nerd fact. And almonds, which I don't know. I don't believe that almonds are technically a nut either. I'm not 100% certain. Because they're actually like the inside of a pit. Like, they have this fleshy fruit, and almond fruit is a super hard, fibrous, bitter fruit that nobody would ever eat. And then you have the pit, and then inside the pit, when you crack that's where you actually get the kernel that is the almond.
Is it a nut, though? I think it is still. I think it still is a nut. I really do. But I could be wrong, because if you look at the walnut, it has an exterior that's you don't eat, and then it's inside. So now you're going to make me look at that. But the Brazil nuts, don't eat more than 6 of them a day, though, because it's too much selenium. It's too much. Yeah, so 2, 3, wonderful. I eat them all the time. I love them.
That's exactly why I eat like 2 or 3. And so I actually, I don't track every day, but I use an app called Chronometer.
I love Chronometer. Yes.
Yeah, and I offer it to my clients as well. Every couple of days, I will track what I eat to just kind of get a look at, because I'm a nerd for numbers and data, and it helps me to see, am I getting sufficient nutrition? Because I don't eat a lot of dairy. It's really interesting. I wasn't really getting a lot of calcium, and I kind of take it for granted. I'm like, whatever, because we can think, I'll eat, lots of spinach and things like that. But when you take dairy out of the picture, it can be really difficult to get sufficient calcium. So
green leafy vegetables, you'll get a lot of calcium from green leafy vegetables like kale and collards and mustard greens.
Spinach and
yeah.
So anyways, we digress.
It's all good.
It's a good digression. So you battled your way through Lyme disease, and you get your health back, and do you find that you're now like more sensitive than ever before? Like, when something's off, that if you eat something that, something's not quite right here.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Just like I said, if I eat at a restaurant and I get a little fuzzy wuzzy, and it's not like, I drank a glass of wine and I feel, a little on the drunk side or tipsy.
Sure.
No, it's not that. It's, I have a hard time making sentences. It's weird. It's weird when it does happen to me. I remember we were camping once, and stupidly, I ate one of those, I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a little packaged snack that our friends brought. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have one of those. I'm telling you, I had such a weird, foggy brain for 24 hours. I would think that they might have laced it with something, but I know them. They wouldn't have. They didn't. Of course. But that's how I felt like I was drugged. It was terrible. So,
So there's something really interesting here. I wonder how many people normalize this experience and then maybe use something, for example, like coffee. And coffee doesn't quite clear it up, but you look at I was just on a coaching call. We were having this discussion around caffeine and its overuse, because it's probably the most used and maybe even abused psychoactive substance on the planet. I treat caffeine like a credit card. There's a time and a place where maybe I got a long drive and I need to be alert. Okay, maybe but I try not to consume it. I used to be a caffeine junkie, and so, but just this, kind of this idea that this is how we live, where we normalize kind of dysfunction and go, well, this is just my existence. And I think what you would like to show people is this doesn't have to be that. And maybe what I was hinting at was, once you were kind of free from Lyme and you experienced living vibrantly, you go, whoa, I didn't know it was like possible to live like this, but now that I know what this feels like, there's no way in heck that I want to go back to feeling like I used to feel.
There was a time I'm going to share with you, okay? It was one of the supplements that I take. And this was going into year 4.5 of fighting Lyme. And it took a couple of months, and I got really sick. I can't tell you it was from the supplement, but my whole body decided to purge everything for 3 days. Couldn't get out of the bed. On the 4th day, I got up and I said, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. It's as if somebody turned the light on in the room and my brain turned on. I'm like, what in the world happened? I must have just purged everything, whatever happened. My body, in its innate wisdom, got rid of everything that was bothering me. And I said, oh my gosh. And then I realized I have a brain and how smart I am and how much I can actually do and be and have in my life because I have my brain back. Oh my gosh. That's what it was for me. And when I chose to eat that little packaged food and my brain went the other way, I literally get emotionally upset with myself for making that decision. And I also, more so, I get upset that my brain I did that to my brain. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little emotion now thinking about me making that kind of a silly mistake and compromising my brain that is so precious to me. Obviously, what am I going to do without a brain? And I never want to be that girl again that wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. And it wasn't because I'm not sharp. It's because my brain was compromised big time.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I wanted to make a joke there about what am I do without a brain, and I was thinking, man, there's a lot of politicians that seem to be doing just fine. But I'm not going to go there because politicization or politics seems to really divide people, and I'm like, could we at least have a sense of humor about this? Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get through this crazy thing called life and enjoy it with a sense of purpose. Now, at the beginning, I think you said something like a lazy inspirational cook. Is that right?
I'm the lazy inspirational chef, yes.
There we go. Chef, right.
Yeah, I take shortcuts.
Yeah.
And I'm hungry. I'm a hungry girl. I want to get food on the table. And I want to eat. Because like tonight, I'm going on a bike ride. I lead a bike ride every Tuesday night and lots of Saturdays. And I'll be home, it'll be 8 o'clock. I'm hungry. I need to take a shortcut. What's the quickest way to get food on my plate? So I take shortcuts. And I also want to inspire the world you don't have to follow a recipe. Right, you don't have to. You can use your own inspiration. What flavors do you like? If you don't like almond butter, use cashew butter. If you don't like Italian seasonings, use whatever seasonings you like.
You don't like Italian seasoning. What is wrong? Yeah, no, I just want to,
Yeah, you tried, John.
You tried. I tried.
You tried. And I want to teach people how they can find joy in their lives, but also in the kitchen. Because to me, the kitchen is joy. Ever since I was a little girl, I was in the kitchen with my mom, cooking, making pasta, making whatever it is that we were having that day. Because, of course, you're with your mom. I was with my mom all the time. And they put you to work in the kitchen. So I was cutting up garlic, making pasta, making food ever since I was a little girl. And food is joy. Food is joy. Food is family. Food is, you go to your grandmom's house and she's go, did you eat yet? And I'm like, yeah, we just had dinner. Oh, I'm going to feed you anyway. And to this day, John, feeding people brings me joy. Feeding people brings me joy.
The human experience of sharing resources. I think about it in like a kind of its simplest way at a human sort of societal level, because throughout human history, for most of it, it was rare to have periods of food abundance. Like, we live in a very unusual time in the timeline of human history in that we have food abundance. And so this is why from generation to generation, when we have a period of abundance and we share with others, it does something. And what I love here is I find myself saying this a lot. If somebody ever says food is just fuel, I think, my goodness, you're missing out on all so much beauty that life has to offer, because food is history, it is family, it is celebration, it is connection. And one of the things that I work with people in my programs is really around emotional eating. And I have like a 7-day challenge, for example, and it's called 7 End Emotional Eating. I call it that just because it's shorter than saying end destructive emotional eating. That interrupts the alliteration. But really, all eating does have an emotional component to it. And when we try to artificially suppress the emotional component of eating, we miss out on some of the joy in life. But it's like we can redefine what enjoyment looks like. It doesn't have to be about the volume of food we consume. It can be about appreciating each bite and tasting it and being present and appreciating the connection when there's others with us at the table. There's so many other aspects of that. And so, there's so many great things that you do here. So as we wind down here, let's let people know again, where can they find more about what you do and really how you have taken this really challenging life experience and turned this into the ability to help others and facilitate not only healing but vibrant, healthy living.
Yes, you can find me on my website. That's what it's called, TinaMcDermott.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, of course, Tina McDermott. There's only one of me. Oh, there might be some imposters, but yeah, you'll find me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, I was going to say, what do you call a fake noodle?
A foodle?
An impasta.
Oh. I was thinking about spiralizing fruit, because then I call them poodles.
Oh, that's so awesome! I managed to slip a dad joke in there about
pasta.
Oh, that's so amazing! Tina, it's been such a pleasure. You're such a delight to chat with, and you have so many wonderful things to share. If people were to take one thing away from this conversation, if you could just give them kind of one nugget that you would say, hey, if you were to take this, this could really positively impact your life. Here's what I would like to share with you. What would that be?
Okay, can I do 2?
You can do 2. I'll make a special allowance for you.
Thank you. Because 2 things popped up. The very first thing I have every single one of my clients do is drink water. Drink water. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water a day. Yes, if you drink your water, if you do one thing in your life, it's hydrate, 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 hydrate. The second thing I want to share with the world, John, and thank you so much for letting me share this, is that we are here on this earth for joy and for love. And if you're going to have that special treat, eat it with joy and with love. And yeah, anything else, people say, they'll bump into me at the supermarket and say, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, fine. Life is for joy. We got to meet. Hello. Yeah, so just remember that if you are not in joy, if you are not in love, pet a cat, pet a dog, go for a walk, buy yourself some flowers, and just revel in the majesticness of the sky and our universe, and do whatever it takes to bring you back to joy, because that is why we are here, for joy and love. Thank you for allowing me to share. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been so amazing. Thank you for sharing this conversation, and I look forward to when we get to chat again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Before and After. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, or leave a review, because that helps this podcast to reach and inspire more people. I love exploring the stories that take place between the before and after, the powerful experiences that shape who we become. And I love human potential. I love the possibilities that lie within us. So whatever you may be up against, I hope these stories inspire you, because if you're still here, your story's not done yet, so keep moving forward.
Anyone can come from any place of brokenness and destitution and build an amazing life.